I tried building a fully functional app using AI, but the app crashed. Features just wouldn't work, and I was about to give up in complete frustration. Instead, I found a way to actually solve all of these problems and get a fully functional app. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to overcome these issues by building a personalized note-taking app. We're going to go step by step. You're going to see all of the errors and exactly how we overcome them. By the end of this video, you'll have your own personalized note-taking app, but more importantly, you're going to have the skills that you need to overcome all of the issues that you'll have when you start building with AI. Let's get started. So to build this app, we're going to use Replit. And if you don't know what Replit is, it's essentially just a vibe coding app that allows you to just use prompts to build fully functional apps. Now, before we try to dive right in and just craft a prompt, we actually need to figure out what exactly are we trying to build. And you would typically do this by crafting your requirements. So to build out the requirements, we're going to use ChatGPT. There's a few things we're going to need to decide on. What are the key features of the app and how do we want it to look and feel? So for this app, we're going to use this prompt. So now to generate the requirements, essentially what we're asking ChatGPT is to build the requirements. That way we can record notes, but the notes should also be stored in their own little notebook. We also want to store everything into a database. We want the design to look kind of modern, clean, modern. I just used Apple as an example. And we should also be able to store the time and date so we know exactly when we took the note. The last thing is I asked it to format the requirements in a paragraph form so that way we can easily copy and paste this directly into Replit. Perfect. So we're going to take this right now and we're going to just copy this here and go straight into Replit. And then we are going to paste it. Please design the app according to the mints above. So now Replit's going to work, look at our requirements, and then it's going to try to come up with what it calls an implementation plan. This is essentially how it's going to construct the initial design of our app. So now we just got to take a look at the plan. It says it's going to create, edit, and save notes, text, and body. Yeah, organize the notes into custom created notebooks, support different note types. Yeah, that looks good. And then using timestamps. So this looks good. So I am going to hit approve plan. So now what you're seeing is Replit starting to work through the implementation plan and build out our initial note-taking application. It's pre-populating it with some data just so it can test to see if the functions are working. And it's going through all of this all by itself without any guidance from me. Okay, perfect. So now let's actually take a look and see if any of this works. We can see we have a notes section, select the notebook, and a common area. So if I hit this, let's create a notebook. We'll call this my first notes. Let's give it this color. Okay, let's see if we can add a note. Let's see if we can change this to, okay, so it's not recording the notes correctly right now when I try and type. So that's not working and it keeps on changing. Looks like values are changing. And I keep seeing that it says saved, saved, saved. And I'm thinking that that might have something to do with it. There must be some kind of like auto save feature. We'll see if that is part of the problem. Let's take a look here. So we can select checklist, meeting note, idea, but it doesn't really look like it's doing anything. Can we delete it? We can delete the note. Save failed, failed to save changes. Okay, so right now it looks okay, but you know, some of the functions aren't working. Now the best way anytime you're building any apps with any of these vibe coding tools, even when you're building it with regular code, is to fix one problem at a time. So we're going to focus on that one issue where it seems like it's not saving properly. So we're going to say there is an issue when I try to type in the note. It seems like it is always saving and loading, which means that whatever I type never gets saved. Can you review this logic and see if we can write a note and then save it? So we're going to see if this works. We're really trying to guide it. That's one of the things with vibe coding. You still need to kind of understand a little bit about what the potential problems could be. So you have to pay attention to what your app is actually doing. And that's why it's super important, again, to do one problem at a time. So we just tried to type into the note, and if we're having an issue, then we're like, that's a problem. We need to fix that. So right now we can see what it's doing. It's trying to remove the autosave function since we're not using it anymore. So the issue was that the autosave function was creating a continuous loop of saving and fetching the data. So that's part of the problem. And I guess it was able to figure that out because we gave it some of that guidance. Okay, so now we're going to give it a try. Let's try to create a note. My new note. This is a note that is, so it's now starting to work. See, we stopped typing and now it's saving. Does this work? It says unsaved changes. Let's create another one. Let's go back. Okay, let's go back. Okay, so it's still not saving properly. So now we're just going to say that we're able to type, but it's not saving our work. Type, but when we do, it says unsaved changes after 1.5 seconds. Save function isn't working. Now, the reason why I know it's 1.5 seconds is if we look up here, it says they basically improved the delay to 1.5 seconds. So what they were trying to do is give a little bit more of a delay between when you stop typing and when it tries to save. So we still need to fix it. Let's see if this works. Okay, so it says it's fixed. Let's take a look. We'll go to this note here. Let's delete this first. It says saving, unsaved changes. Let's go back here. So it's still not working. What happens if I hit the save button? Move down, still not working. So we're gonna say, okay, it seems like the save still doesn't work, even if we manually use the save button. Are you updating the database? Okay, so now it's asking us to type something in the text area. So here you go. And then it wants me to do, let's see, F12. Okay, here we go. So now it's saying, let's take a look at the console log. So this is actually something that's very interesting. Sometimes Replit will actually require you to help it to diagnose what the issue is. So I had to open up its tools in order to see the console log so that way it could see whether or not something was saving or not saving. It's still trying to diagnose what the actual problem is, but by, working with it, you can probably get a better result. We're going to see if it's actually able to resolve this issue. Okay, so now let's try. We'll go here. Okay, that's a good sign. It said saved. We're going to click here. Then we click here, and then let's do a little update, and let's see what happens. Click here. Looks like the save function's working. The next thing we got to do is check if the save button work. To save, and then we save manually. Go here, and we'll type something in here. So that one, here you go. Saving. There we go. So it looks like the saving's working, but if I leave too quickly from the note before it has a chance to save, then it won't actually save. So I'm tempted to try to see if we can fix that. This works. Now, can we auto save once we switch to another note or notebook? Okay, so now it says it's done. Let's give it a test. When I go in here, if I do this, okay, so now I can't type. Now I can't type. It seems that the save when switching notes is running into a loop. It should only run one time each time we switch a note or notebook. Okay, let's take a look. So let's see if I do this. Okay, I can type. Autosave will come back. So autosave works. Here we go. And let's see if manual save works. Manual save works. And now what happens when I switch? So that doesn't work. So when I switch notes, if I switch too quickly, it doesn't save. So we're going to say, okay, the app works. However, when I switch notes, doesn't save. Only the auto save and save button work. It seems that the switch note might only be running the first time we switch a note. So let's think about this. We almost want it like when we're clicking on a different note that it runs the save script of the last note. Maybe we can say before we leave the page to go to a new note, the save script should run. Can you try that? Okay, let's take a look. Let's see if this works. Here again, still not working. This is what it's like trying to build any app, whether you're vibe coding or not vibe coding. We need to still try to break down the problem, give it as much guidance as possible, and let it iterate until it figures out exactly how to fix the issue. Okay, let's try this. Again, still not working. Okay, let's see here. Let's save. Okay, so the save function isn't working. That could be part of the issue. One of the issues that I started to see that was happening now was that it actually is starting to save, but it won't update the text area based on what was saved. So I'm trying to guide it to say, hey, listen, this is what it's doing. And this is why, honestly, it's super important for us to do one problem at a time, one feature at a time. So it looks like we're still having issues with the save. And in fact, it's actually worse than before we tried to do this. But this is actually something that's super important, because what happens when you start going down this rabbit hole and it looks like your app is just getting worse and worse and worse? Well, Replit actually has a feature where we can roll back the changes and start further back. And I actually think that that's what we should do in this case. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and find exactly where we started going down the rabbit hole. What we're going to do is we're going to hit roll back here so we can go back to right before we started to try to make these types of changes. Okay, so now let's test and see if this works. So if I click here, saving, perfect, and save, perfect. So now that we've rolled back, we got to decide. We can give this a go again. We can try to see if we can get it so that way when you click on another note that it automatically saves, or we can start working on another feature. Let's try this one more time. Can you make it so that before we change notes by loading a new note, that the save script is run to save the current note? Okay, let's see if this works. So the save function still works. What happens when I try to leave? And it finally works. So sometimes when you run into issues, you need to roll it back and rephrase it. Because I kind of had a better idea of what I wanted it to do, instead of it trying to create a whole brand new function to do this, I wanted it to leverage an existing function. We were able to get a much better result. You're gonna run into issues when you're trying to build out your apps, and you gotta just push past it, sometimes roll back and just rethink about the problem. What are the different ways that you can solve it? So we were able to get that to work. Let's see what else we want. As a function, let's see if we can delete the note. We can still add notes. That's perfect. Meeting note, idea. Okay, this is perfect. And let's see what happens when we add a new notebook. Perfect. Perfect. So I think for this, we're going to add maybe one more feature. Let's see if we can do dark mode. This works. Can you create the ability to use dark mode? Okay, let's give this a test. Light mode, dark mode. Let's look at the notes. Looks like that's good to go. Okay, so that looks like that works. So there's one feature that we still need to fix. Let's see if we can get that to work. You see here. However, when I change the notebook, it doesn't change its notebook location here. Okay, so let's take a look. If I go here, this one here, let's say if I put it here, then it should, oh, I think I have to save it. New and put it here. Yeah, saved. Okay, so I think it's not refreshing. I changed the notebook and it is not showing here. I think it might not be refreshing. So I'm telling it that I changed the notebook, but it's still not showing in the actual note section. So I think it's not refreshing, but I'm going to ask it to take a look. And then another key that I did here is I wanted to show it exactly where I want to see it. And I just did a screenshot and gave it a screenshot. That's actually something that's really powerful about these tools, is you can show them exactly what you're talking about. It helps to give them more context to make sure that they can fix the issues. Let's take a look here. What if I move this to new, saving, and that works. And let's move this one to this. Perfect. So that functionality works now. So we're able to create a notebook, create notes within the notebook. We can move notes from one notebook to another notebook. We've built in auto saving. We have also built in manual saving. And when you select a different notebook, it will automatically save the note that you were just working on. And then of course, we added in the ability to delete a note. And just in case you want it, we also have dark mode. Now we could style this a lot differently than how it looks right now. In fact, maybe if we did it this way, let's try this. In dark mode, can you make this section a dark gray instead of black? We'll see if this works. Okay, so it didn't do exactly what I want. So let's give it the full view. Dark colors don't match. Can you fix it so that they are, I'm being very vague right now, better designed. They should all use similar shades. So yeah, I'm being very, very vague right now, but I want to see if it can come up with something. Okay, it says it's working, but it completely crashed. So let's see what we can do to fix this. Okay, let's take a look. Looks like this was working and perfect. All right, so now we have our very simple, fully functional note-taking app. Now we could keep building this out to be a fully functional app. The possibilities really are endless. But as we add more and more features, we're gonna run into more and more issues. Now, if you wanna learn how you can overcome all these issues and actually build fully functional apps, then you're gonna wanna click right here.